Drivers, start your engines!
Hit the pace car! What for? Because you hit every other damn thing out there, I want you to be perfect!
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. It's him, but he talks to me.
Well, I wanna be a race car driver, pretty girls eating from my hand, yeah. Wanna live a life of fun and danger, no sweating working for the man, alright.
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Drafting the Circus program on the Hoobazoo Radio Network, brought to you by Dan Blay Racing Art and FirstSuperspeedway.com. My name is Frank Santarashki. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about this past weekend in racing, this week in racing, as we've got practice for the Indianapolis all through the week, and we'll preview next week. Joining me in the studio is Luis Torres. Luis, how are you?
Been doing all right. Focus on Texas this weekend.
Yeah. Well, just the two of us tonight. We've got Richard is off on assignment. He's at Gateway Motorsports Park doing some work with Goodyear tires. And Joey's on assignment in Indianapolis enjoying the rain. So just you and me tonight. So let's start with, speaking of rain, we got our first chance to see Indy cars with the windscreen running in the rain. And that was at the GMR Grand Prix at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. At the end of the day, it was Colton Herta taking the win, and unfortunately, Richard's not here to bash Colton Herta because, honestly, this is the kind of drive out of Colton Herta that we need to see. That Richard's has been saying we need to see more of this. Herta was the first guy to switch from rain tires to slicks. He had a couple of hairy moments out there trying to hold it together. But, as the track conditions kind of leaned his way, in making that move, he leapfrogged from 14th to leading the race. And then he was able to just nail the strategy, between him and his team, nail the strategy the rest of the day and then pull off the win there.
Oh, for sure. And we've talked about it for months. It seems like if the pressure has been always Colton Herta's Achilles heel, he always wants to fight for the win. And even when he's not in the position to win, he still wants to do everything he can to get up there, even if it is out of reach. And more often than not, when he's put under that pressure, he'll make mistakes, like costly ones. We saw it in Long Beach multiple times. We saw it at Barber. We saw it in Nashville. At the very beginning of the race, it seemed like Herta was going to lose it, probably get stuck, or damage the car, or be done. No, he somehow initial D'd the corner, saved it, and got it going. It is one of two major saves in the world of racing that weekend. We'll talk about the second one later, but I said to myself when I was watching it, well, there's no way Colton Herta will lose now. If the way he saved it, it's got to go his way somehow. And lo and behold, Lady Luck favored Colton. And strategy indeed worked to his advantage. His teammate, on the other hand, Alexander Rossi, he tried something different and completely backfired. And he did it in his own way. He felt that's his own choice. So, no, let me go with this direction. And it looked like it was going to work, but it was not timed well. And because of the persistent weather, it became a race against time because the constant talk, the thunderstorm, when is lightning going to strike that's going to stop the race? And we're going to race to halfway. But those number of full course cautions at the beginning, it slowly became like they're not racing for 85 laps. They're going to, run through halfway, which is past lap 43, or the 2-hour time window. Fortunately, there was no lightning.
Some of those cautions seemed excessively long, and we've seen this kind of.
And it threw Hinchcliffe off on commentary.
Yeah, but we've seen this kind of thing from IndyCar before, where they take they do a reasonable job getting the thing cleaned up quickly, but they take a ridiculously long amount of time to reset the field or get the field in the order that they need them, or and it's just you're burning laps off the advertised distance, which is in a sense, yeah, you're going to have some of that, but when it gets to the point where you just think, golly, this is just ridiculous how long this is going on, and you feel like you're taking money out of your paying customers' pockets that are sitting out there in their ponchos in the rain, and I don't know if it's just that the officiating and the they can't get it right, but with today's day and age, digital scoring stuff, it shouldn't take us that long to reorder the field.
There's two things you got to consider. There was also a couple of spins during the full course caution that kind of messed up the running order quite a bit. And also, I think this was the first race where they had the digital boards, the LED, like what they use in Formula One to indicate there's a safety car rather than just fully rely on corner marshals. Yeah, you still had a couple, but this was really the first true event where you had those LED boards telling the drivers it's a full course caution. And you mentioned it earlier with the aero screen, that proved to be a challenge because we really have not had that much rain in a long time. It's been a while. And you heard it from the drivers.
Yeah, I don't think we've had a rain race since we put the screens on.
No, not with. No, I think St. Pete had threatening weather, and for the most part, it was out of harm's way.
So the last time we had a wet race was in Detroit back in 19.
Yeah, where Marco was on the dries.
Yeah, and of course Colton kind of repeated that feat a little bit. We say a lot of disparaging things about Colton Herta on this show at times, and at the same time we all have a great deal of respect for him as a driver. But I want to say he's moved up several notches, on my radar with this performance this past weekend.
Oh yeah, and that's what he needs to do, have more of that, where it shows that he knows how to do kind of a car under weirdest circumstances, and he did that. When it comes to speed, like we mentioned, once he's out in front, nobody can stop him. When you put him in a pressure situation, that's where his main weakness is. And in the rain, that was the greatest pressure he had, and he capitalized it. For once, he capitalized a scenario where in previous races, it probably would not end well. The question is, can he carry that forward for the rest of the season to where he can be? Because he just moved back to the top 10 of the championship trail. Speaking of the top 10, everyone but one driver had issues, whether there was a spin or wreck, or Dixon's case, fuel, spinning twice, the car got stuck, wing damage that I think Marcus Ericsson had to go through. Only Will Power looked to me the only one that had no legit problems at any point in the Grand Prix race.
Right, and Will Power is now the new points leader.
Yep, with that third place finish.
Yeah, which for Will is, because he's, the time that he's fought for the championship, I've always felt like he's been, trying to fight his way back up, right? All the years he was trying to catch Dario, or the year he was trying to catch Hunter Ray, then when he finally did win the thing, I think in 14 his season didn't start out great, but this year he hasn't won a race, but he's not finished lower than fourth in any race this year. He's now leading the points. He's looking as solid as ever. He's looking as professional as ever. And we're heading to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 500, where there are qualifying points on the line and double points on the line. And here's a race that Will has performed well in, and a race that Will has won, and a race that he's qualified well at. So,
and that's the big
everybody else might want to watch out for Will Power. Yeah.
And that's the big question mark, qualifying. I know the past couple 500s qualifying has not been good to Penske. If Power puts that in the round of 12 and then ultimately gets it to the Fast 6, you got to look at Will Power being a true contender for the 500. And if he has a great rest of the month, he'll be a legit title contender. That could all make the difference when you really think about it. Or in the case of going back to Herta, if he has a solid 500, and that's going to be a big question mark. That's a huge unknown right now. He'll be back in the title mix, but you got those stuff you got to think about. But yeah, Will Power is kind of let the race come to you, and it's gone extraordinarily well. While guys like Graham Rahal, Alex Palou, Rinus VeeKay, Roman Grosjean all had their problems of their own, quietly power was staying out. Yeah, he didn't let it lap. He won the pole, which is now 3 away from tying Mario. There's some people would say 64 plus 1 because of the non-championship race at Surfers Paradise in '08. But that's a different story for another time. But great run. Another one's that you got to look at is the man who finished ahead of him, Simon Pagenaud in the Meyer Shank car. The 60 car has always done well with Jack Harvey at the Grand Prix, but never could fully put up a race result that matches the qualifying.
And, well, of course, Simon he's a 2-time winner of the Grand Prix as well. Yep. He won I almost said he won his first race. I think he won his first race in Detroit.
Yeah, in the 77.
But he certainly, he's won the Grand Prix twice, once for Schmidt and then once with Penske. So again, great track for him, great result for him. Again, heading into the 500, race that he's won, a race that Meyer Shank won last year. So all good mojo for that team as well.
Oh yeah, I say he's a definite sleeper for the 500. I know in the preseason I had Pagenaud as my winner of the 500. Do I still think that way? We'll see by next weekend or so. But another one that really needed a perfect Grand Prix weekend, Conor Daly. He finally put one together. I know we also talked about him not necessarily living up to the opportunities he's been given, but this time around, not only he put in the Fast Six, finished in the top 5, which he hasn't done since 2018.
Conor looks like and the funny thing is this is coming on the heels of an interview he gave to, I believe it was Racer Magazine, where he made some comments that he just can't figure out the aero screen. He said that the driving with the aero screen era just does not suit my driving style, which prompted other people to say, well, what's been your excuse before that? Because honestly, we're talking about a guy who's he won
a pole in an aero screen car. It was, Conor, it's kind of funny he brought it up. I was like, I know Ovals and road course are completely different things, but when it comes to the aero screen, he got a pole with one inside of those cars in 2020. So that's interesting you bring that up.
Well, it's interesting that he, just before he has arguably his best performance in a number of years, he's out here making excuses as to why he's not performing. So, and the thing is, at the end of the day, when you say, you make excuses about the aero screen, and the thing that about Conor Daly, right, that pisses me off, and it's not about Conor Daly that pisses me off, it's Conor Daly's fans that piss me off. And I'm probably going to piss them off by saying this, but the people will go to the ends of the earth to defend him, right? They say, oh, well, he doesn't have a full-time ride, right? He's in 2 different teams. Well, now he does have a full-time ride. He's had a full-time ride. And the times when he has had a full-time ride, his best finish in the championship is 18th. They said, well, Conor's in inferior equipment. He's driving for Ed Carpenter and he's instead of Roger Penske. I'm like, well, hard to
on a really good day. VK.
Yeah, I was gonna say hard to swallow that one. VK has won a race, 4 podiums and a pole in the same amount of time that Conor's been with the Carpenter team. So it just, people keep defending Conor, but these are the kind of things that Conor needs to do, right? Just put in a solid. He put in a solid performance all weekend through practice, through qualifying, and in the race. Starting 4th. When's the last time Conor Daly was in the Fast Six, right?
Yeah, we're talking about Fast Six, not when he won the pole for Carlin, because there was no fast anything. It was because during the pandemic, it was just lap 1 for race 1 and lap 2 for race number 2.
Yes,
so on and so forth.
Yeah, that was Texas.
Iowa.
Yeah. So yeah, remember that odd little qualifying format. Yeah. So, but good for Conor. And again, last year at the 500, he did lead the most laps, which was 40. Which is, not a ton of laps to lead, but he did, look pretty solid at the front, in the 500 last year. So, we know he knows his way around the track, and we know Carpenter is perfectly capable of giving a guy a very good car for the 500. Ed's led a number of laps there. Ed's got a second place finish. VK led a bunch of laps last year. VK qualified on the front row last year. So this could be that turning point that Conor Daly needs. Maybe he's suddenly, the switches come on. He's figured out what he's doing wrong with the aero screen that affects his driving style. But I was truly impressed with Conor Daly this weekend.
No, for sure. He stood out, and I think with the momentum and the hungry determination of being up front in last year's 500 until the front wing cone got damaged because of Ram Rahal's loose wheel, that kind of set him back a bit, and as was a number of drivers. Ed Carpenter Racing will definitely be in the mix. When it comes to their no-toe speed, they were on the top of the board as we transitioned to practice, because that's the one thing that stood out as a Carpenter, and when it comes to no-toe, they were right up there. With toe, and honestly, overall, I think you got to go through Ganassi right now.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. No, well, and of course, right at the end of the day, Sato set fast time. And Sato has proven to us that he's a guy, don't count him out at Indianapolis.
Doesn't matter what car he's driving, he's going to find a way to do well.
I was going to say that the man has 2 wins. He's got a near win in 2012. He's got I believe a second place or third place in 18. So yeah, he's always strong at the speedway. He's run well there. Going back to about 2010, he had a good run there. 2012, he should have won that thing. But yeah, so Sato at the top of the charts. All the Ganassi cars looking good. Jimmy Johnson shutting all his critics down. It's a shame that the second day of practice got washed out. But, the surprises are, for me, at the bottom of the charts. Ed Carpenter, 29th. Montoya, 30th. Rossi, 27th. Conor Daly, 28th.
And that's pretty much overall, because it's overall because with the toe, like I mentioned, no toe, they're up there, but with toe, they were at the bottom. And also Andretti had a couple in the top, right near in the top 10 or the top 11. And then you have another half at the bottom. And ones that have stood out so far are those rookies, which includes Johnson for this race. You had him up there, David Malukas, so it's not just Sato. Dale Coyne cars look pretty sporty.
They do look pretty good. Well, Honda engines in general look pretty good.
Yeah.
If you look at it, the top place Chevy in the practice was VK, who ran 5th. But yeah, it's funny that VK's 5th, but his teammates are down in 29th and 30th. So, and again, VK's guy sat on the front row last year. At Indy and led some laps. So there's another guy we need to look at. Now, speaking of VK and speaking of Colton Herta, these are 2 guys that can actually break a 70-year-old record at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Do you know what record that is, Luis?
Let's see, 70 is in the 50s.
Okay. 70 years exactly. So 1952.
Ooh, youngest winner in the Indy 500 and pulled by Troy Ruttman.
Yes, exactly. Right. These 2 guys will both be younger than Troy Ruttman, age of 22 years, 80 days, when it comes to May 29th. Yeah. Interestingly enough, see, I'm in the middle of, here I am plugging my own work again. I'm in the middle of writing an article about records that can be broken at the Indy 500 this year. Okay. With the obvious one being, we could have our first 5-time winner. But it's odd with so many young guys in racing and this big youth movement we've had. It's almost unfathomable that the record for youngest winner at the 500 has stood for 70 years, right? And largely because the Speedway, it rewards experience, right? And it rewards, the cunning veterans. And look how many guys have won Indy 500s, and not just by luck, but by great performances over 40. Talking Sato, Castro Neves, right? John Cock, AJ Foyt, Al Unser Sr., all these guys, winning over 40. And look at the guys in their late 30s that have put on great performances, Simon, Will, Franchitti in his mid 30s. So, the last really young guy to win the 500 was Rossi, who was 24 years, 257 days when he won. But the next youngest guy before him, how many years do you think got to go back?
I have to go back probably to Rick Mears, I think.
Nope. Keep going.
Oh, geez, we have to go further back, aren't we?
1930.
Jeez.
I know, right? You got a couple guys that were close, right? Montoya was 25 when he won his first one. I want to say Weldon was 25 going on 26. Yeah. So, but so if you think about this, right, you got two guys that could realistically break a 70-year-old record there and become the youngest winner in Speedway history. So that would be neat to see.
Here's another thing that stands out as well, and I was thinking about it. If Johnson keeps that momentum for the rest of the weekend, finds a way to put it in and make it to the round of 12, then puts himself into the Fast Six, and be a contention for the pole, there's only one man that has won both the Daytona and Indy 500 poles. That's AJ Foyt. But what stands out, should Johnson do it, is that he would win poles as a race rookie. Because we got to go back 20 years ago when he made his first Daytona 500. He led the field to the green. It was pretty much a Daytona 500 rookie front row, because it was also Harvick's first Daytona 500, because after what happened on February 18th the year before,
so Jimmy Johnson won the pole in the Daytona 500 as a rookie.
Yep.
And he's practicing quite well, so he's actually got a shot at winning poles for both of those as a rookie now, yeah.
And join AJ Foyt as the only one to win Daytona and Indy poles.
Well, now, Jimmy Johnson won the Daytona 500, has he not? He's won the race.
Yes, he has. Twice.
So he could join Mario Andretti as the only guy to win the Daytona 500. And no.
Foyt.
Yeah. Did Foyt win the Daytona 500?
Yep, with the Wood brothers.
Oh, that's right. Well, he would join both those guys then. So, but that's not a small feat, to win Indy and Daytona. So
yeah, the not just the race but qualifying. I mean, it is very rare. I was thinking back when did Tony ever won the pole in the 500 at Daytona? No, he has the Indy 500 pole that was inherited because of what happened with Scott Brayton.
I don't know if they count that as a pole for him. You know what I mean? That's really he started
pole.
He started from the pole position, yeah. So, and 96 was just weird anyway, because the guy with the fastest speed set it on the second weekend. So that was Leindyke, who started 20th.
Yeah.
So realistically, there were more than two guys that had qualified faster than Stewart.
Look at 05. Kenny Brack was the fastest overall guy in qualifying, but he started around midfield because they decided to run the next day, and it just became better. It's just about at the time. It's just a matter of what day you ran it and the conditions being ideal for a faster lap, a set of 4-lap averages.
Yeah. I mean, the Indy 500 has always had, just like Daytona 500 has weird qualifying rules too, where they have the qualifying races to set, everybody after the front row. So, but
speaking of that, like in 2000, like when Casey Mears won the pole of the Brickyard in 04, he broke the previous track record holder was Brett Bodine in 2000. In a race that Ricky Rowe won the pole because Brett qualified the following day, second round qualifying. He was actually faster than the pole sitter. You had weird qualifying has had weird rules and formats over the years, but we'll talk about a rather unique qualifying format later.
Yes, we will. So for now, let's. Are there any other takeaways from the GMR Grand Prix before we, kind of preview the 500 a little bit, which we've already kind of started doing, but I'm just trying to think of anything else we need to take away from the GMR race other than the
two rookies that finished in the top 10 and crashed at the line. And those were Christian Lundgaard and Callum Ilott. Callum Ilott finally put up an overall race weekend that backs up his practice and qualifying. Problem is, he still yet to full 100% have a clean race. No, that's what, and naturally when it's raining, you cannot really see, and and the track's getting dimmer because it was getting pretty late as well. Sometimes you can't really control that much. And at the end of the race, Christian Lundgaard and Colin Mailon tangled coming at the line under caution because it ended after Montoya, who was having a great run, stayed out of trouble, and then he had an accident that ended the race. What was it, 9 to 10 laps short because of the 2-hour window. They had damage while they both got top 10s, which is key for the Rookie of the Year battle that's going to get tighter as the season goes on. They had damaged cars in the process. So yeah, those are the ones that stood out. Those two rookies standing out. When it comes to Lundgaard, it's no surprise we saw what he was able to do last year at the Brickyard weekend. So this kind of backs up his run, but also kept until that point stayed out of trouble.
Yeah. So I think Callum Allen's got Callum Eilot's got a great future in IndyCar, and I think that Yuko's team with the Carlin assist is they're probably the most underfunded team on the grid. But it's kind of funny that the Gallagher money that used to go to be on Max Chilton's car is going to be on a Penske car for Detroit. Like Penske needs the money more than Yuko's Carlin, but I mean, Callum is getting his feet wet. He's learning the cars, learning the series, learning who his competitors are. I think this guy's got a bright future. I don't see him in the smaller team for years and years to come. I'm not, I don't know what's going to be open coming up, but I got a lot of respect for him. Malukas in the Foyt car, since we're talking about rookies.
Coin. Kirkwood is in the Foyt car.
Kirkwood, yeah. So we've talked.
Speaking of that, I know with Richard, he'll elaborate more. Another driver that rather stayed out of trouble was Tatiana Calderon. Yeah, she led a couple laps because of the cycle of green flag pit stops and switching tires and all that stuff. For Dixon's case, he ran out of fuel because he stayed out a little too long. She actually led a lap or two and had a caution came out a tad earlier for Dixon or other incidents that happened. She might have still been the race leader, but top 15, not bad for her. I think as many people say, it could be as good as it's going to get, but time will ultimately tell. But the fact that she, for the most part, stayed out of trouble, whereas Kirkwood struggled a bit, not that bad. I just had to point that out. But yeah, Kirkwood's in the Foyt car. Malukas is in the Coin car.
Right. Yeah. Well, sometimes Foyt and Coin are, can be interchangeable. Other times, the Coin cars are really good. I mean, Coin has always had that potential, especially with the right guy behind the wheel.
Oh yeah,
if you think of like when Justin Wilson winning races for them, and Mike Conway won a race for them. Yeah. So
yeah, Bourdais.
Oh yeah, Bourdais for sure. Yeah, you're talking about top talent right there. So, but let's look at the Indy 500. Okay, so we've got all 33 entries. Yeah, we know who they all are. We've got spotter guides, and we know what they all look like, and we know we got some special liveries and whatnot. But it's disappoints me that we lost the second day of practice, and then the track's going to be very green tomorrow when we go back to practice, which will be Thursday, which will be probably when you folks hear this show. But some of the surprises for me, the Penske cars are not near the top of the charts. The highest, fastest Penske car is Newgarden. And again, you've got to talk about the toe speed versus the no toe speed. And, for folks that are uninitiated, a no toe speed means you're running on your own. And that means your car has the potential to set a pretty darn good qualifying lap. A good toe speed means that you got a good race setup and you've got the potential to be very fast in the race. So, that being said, which is better? It's hard to tell. It depends on what you're setting your car up for. You may be setting up for the qualifying, or you may just, qualify where you will. You're going to make the field. There's going to be no bumping, and just start working on your race setup, being that, we're down to 3 days of practice now.
Yeah, with practice being moved up an hour for Monday, which is different from last year. There's a Monday session.
Yeah, well, they moved it back an hour. They gave them an extra hour to make sure that they can get their 500 engines installed. So you give those guys a little extra time in the morning, so they're not up against the clock to get on the track. So that's going to be from 1 to 3 instead of from 12 to 2 on Monday following qualifying. Now, so we have Penske cars are kind of mired between the middle and the back and kind of spread out. The McLaren cars are not up there like I thought they would be, right? Matter of fact, a lot of the Chevys are not up there like I thought they would be. And again, so, I mean, this has been Hondas have been strong at the Speedway for a number of years, minus the 18 and 19 when you had back-to-back Penske wins, but it's been pretty much all Hondas otherwise.
Yeah, especially during qualifying. You look at Marco in 2020 and Dixon in 2021. Be interested to see who from Chevy will even make it to the Fast Six. For all we know, time will tell. It could be all Honda Fast Six.
Could be. Well, last year you had a couple guys.
Yeah, we had VK. Yeah, VK could be the one guy that could play spoiler in this weekend for qualifying.
Right, and he's currently the fastest Chevy. So if you had to pick today who you thought would be on the front row at the Indianapolis 500, who would you go with?
I'd say let's go for the historic and rare feat. Johnson will find a way to win it on pole. Starting alongside would be VK, and rounding out the third starting spot, I'm gonna go with Dixon. So yeah, I have Dixon still be in the front row, but not on pole. Instead of he'll be third on the outside.
And if I had to pick today, I would say Dixon wins his 5th 500 pole, and VK pulls it out and puts it in the middle of the row, and Sato sits on the outside of the front row.
Wouldn't that be something for Coyne to put it on the front row? I don't recall. I don't think Coyne has ever had a front row start. They would have if 17 had Bourdais didn't have that unfortunate accident, because he was on rails of probably being a front row car in 2017. That was his best chance, probably being a 500 winner. His best chance.
Right. Yeah. Then he had that accident where he was injured badly. Yeah. So.
And even people forget Davison was working his way towards there. It showed the car was really good that year, regardless of who they put behind the wheel.
So who would you say a dark horse for the race would be?
I still stand pat. It'll be Pagano, but
okay.
I'd be curious to see how the both Dry and Reinbold cars will look. We saw it last year with Karen putting in the top 10, but I feel like this will be an interesting one to keep an eye on both, specifically Santino.
Yeah, I'm. You and I are of the same thought process here. If I had to pick a dark horse, it'd be Santino, because here's a kid who he gets around the speedway fantastically. And,
we saw at Texas last minute. Final put in the top 10. And sometimes you can have a good indicator how they're going to be in the 500, how they do at Texas, albeit they're different tracks. It's just more or less how this specific oval kit fares on the driver. And Santino's acclimated to oval racing. He's got an act for it.
Yeah, and he's not so far removed from, he had a couple of starts last year. And then he had a couple starts last year with the Rahal team. And then did he have one other fill-in with somebody else last year?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
All I know, Magnussen filled in for Felix, Askew for VK, and Askew drove the 45 at season's end. I don't recall Santino to the top of my head right now that he drove other than the 45 at the beginning of the mid-season of 2021 on a partial basis.
Right. So, but contrast him with Sage Karam, who's pretty much been Indy only since about 2016.
Around after the stint with Ganassi ended.
Yeah. So, and Karam, he's had flashes of brilliance. here and there, but at the same time, I you know, he drives so infrequently that I don't know that he's going to be a factor in the race, but he could prove me wrong again, because the kid does have flashes of brilliance here and there. I recall his rookie year, I believe he ran 9th. So, all right, so let's talk about Kurt Busch, who won in Kansas with a very odd looking paint scheme and driver's uniform. It was it's a different looking car there, but yeah, you know, so second win for 2311 Racing. You know, good day for Kurt Busch. I mean, here's a guy who's always you can never count him out. When you think Kurt Busch is done, he, you know, pops back in and wins a race.
Oh, for sure. And I think since his last Penske win, or right around the last couple of Penske wins, all of his wins have been at different tracks. He has not repeated at one venue or another in a long, long time. And he usually has that one race a year where he will have a really good run at a track that you don't really expect him to do so. Yeah, he's always been good at Daytona. Yeah, he's had some good runs at other tracks. At the beginning of his career, he was master at Bristol, but he hadn't won in a while when he won in 2018. So he's found ways to win at tracks where you least expect it, and they're all unique in its own way. And Kurt was really on it. And yeah, when you look at the stat sheet, yeah, he's had a handful, a good amount of top fives then and there, but they were all because of luck and attrition, because you know how those late race dramas happens, and Kurt so happens to be in the right place at the right time to get a top 5. This one was indeed his best run to date with 2311. It's his first year with him, of course, but he finally put an overall race where everything went to him, not other people's unfortunate events that put him in a spot to where he gets a strong result.
Yeah, I know people like to write Kurt off, but you know, Kurt's a guy I've always liked, always had a lot of respect and admiration for him and the way he drives and the way he, you know, conducts himself. So yeah, so good for him. Great to see him in the winner's circle, you know, and good result for that team. And even though his teammate Bubba Wallace has some issues in the pits, pretty good run for him, all things considered. So you can see that Kurt Busch, with his experience and influence in there, is helping elevate the whole team.
And that's been the tale of Kurt's career. Any team he has gone to, even the two teams he didn't win for in his Cup career, which were Furniture Row and Phoenix Racing, and the Cup level that we're talking about, he made it better. People traced Kurt Busch's time at Furniture Row to build up where they needed to be. Yeah, when he took over Regan was a strong qualifier, but sometimes the races never really fell on the lap. When Kurt came along, he was slowly putting the race finishes together. And then when he went to Stuart Haas and then brought in Martin Truex Jr., they were off to the races till they had to shut down. So he's elevated teams. Yeah, Penske was a sore eye. Even Roush was a sore eye how it ended. But for the most part, he slowly builds them up to where they need to be or get better. Yeah, sometimes the results may not be there. Sometimes luck has not been there. And sometimes just they're not there, period, like with his tenure with Ganassi.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you know, the nice thing is see a guy win a race fair and square, not have a controversy about somebody knocking somebody out of the way for the win, which we've seen too many times this year.
It was hard fought.
Yeah, hard fought and won fair and square. Yep. So
yeah, he had to hold off two Kyles, Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson. And I mentioned earlier about Herta save. Larson did it. That car was wrecked. And I think they mentioned in the broadcast, had that wall not been there, he probably would have lost it completely. The fact Larson saved it kind of shows you how this car, you can manipulate it to your liking and be okay. That was that how Larson did not wreck that thing is not much of a miracle. It just kind of shows that Larson is a wheelman. The same thing with Herta and a wheelman, and that one, of course, it was in the rain. And that one is, of course, in high, for the most part, trying to build high speed. You're just coming off the corner. And the fact they just fought hard, both of them, Kurt and Kyle Larson, was just general fun. Yeah, you had your drama on pit road with Wheels, Justin Haley's crew crew chief, got suspended again because of the loose wheel. Second time this year, the other one being in the Daytona 500. You got Eric Jones, where it got stuck. And I think you got to wonder if the single lug nuts in NASCAR, why is it not working? Is this just malfunctioning, or it's just they're still not acclimated enough, or it's just parts not doing too well? The tires as well, which makes me wonder how this weekend in Texas, because there's just short runs, if they could be acclimated. I'm not sure if you can get a very true indicator how it's going to do come fall, because there's just, for the most part, in layman's terms, short runs.
Yeah, so let's talk about the All Star Race, because you are packing your bags and you're headed down to Texas. You're going to be at the All Star Race. You'll be on the ground covering the race for us, as well as the other folks that you work for. So, let's preview the format for our listeners, please.
All right, let's talk about qualifying.
Because it's always a little bit of a gimmick.
Yeah, for this qualifying system, you have 2 rounds of qualify, where the first round is going to go in reverse order of the owner points, where you get 1 lap. It goes from the bottom to top. And then if you're in the top 8, there's going to be a tournament. Pit stop tournament, that is, where the top 8 qualifiers for round 1. You have 2 cars facing stage side by side in pit stalls near the end of pit road. The crew members are going to do a 4-tire pit stop with drivers exiting the pit stall onto the track. There's no speed limit, which is similar in the past when it comes to the All-Star qualifiers, where you make your pit stop and then you floor it because you want to get the fastest overall lap time. But unlike previous year, where you go for the combined overall time, barring any penalties, where you'll add like 10, 15, 30-second penalties, depends on how the pit or the errors on pit road is. It's the first car to the line that will advance to the next round. And then ultimately it's going to go from 8 down to 4, and then it's an elimination style format. 8, 4, then the finals, and whoever in the finals is the first one at the line. And I imagine there would be penalties involved for like 2, I don't know, we'll see. Uncontrolled tire that will dock it points out of it, or the time. First car to the line wins the pole. And that's how it starts. And for the race itself, you have the open, first of all. 16 cars. 4 of them will advance. You have your 3 stage winners, or as we used to call it back in the day, segment winners. And then you have your fan boat. So we already have 20 in the main event. You're going to be adding 4, so you have 24. Essentially, you have 2/3 of the chartered teams. That's all they're entered, going to the main event. And in the stage format is 20, 20, 10. 20 is stage 1, 20 is stage 2, and then a 10-lap shootout. But each are different. For stage 1, this is for the open. I apologize if we're talking about the open. For the main show.
I know it gets confusing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. For the main show, it's 4 stages. 25, 25, 25, and then 50. That is your long run. And that's going to be key how the cars and the tires will do in the long run. But each stage have their own tail. Stage 1 winner will start on the pole on the final stage. So as long as they finish 15th or better in stage 2 or 3, there's a stipulation in that. Stage 2, same thing, 25 laps. The winner of stage 2 will start second. So as long as they finish 15th or better in stage 3. Then after the second stage, you have a stage break for a pit stop competition. A pit stop competition. Each team must pit and perform a 4-tire stop. The team with the shortest time on pit road wins the pit crew award, and the driver will start 4th in the final stage as long as he finishes 15th or better in stage 3. And then in the third stage, 25 laps, they start 3rd in the final stage. So that little halftime break is a pit stop competition where the fastest crew will award them a 4th place starting spot.
And do we get something cool like a Pitbull concert or something during that halftime break?
No, it's just a special stage break.
50 Cent?
No, we don't get 50 Cent. We don't get Haim. We don't get Olivia. We don't get Olivia Rodrigo.
Do we even get Sammy Hagar?
No, we get Blake Shelton. We get Blake Shelton after the Open. I think it's after the Open. It's between the Open and the All Star Race. We get Blake Shelton, and then after the All Star Race, if you're Hispanic, you get Banda MS after the race. So yeah, Blake Shelton and Banda MS. That's all we get. Whereas the Clash, we got Pitbull and Ice Cube. No, you won't get your Olivia Rodrigos. You won't get your Drakes, unfortunately. But back to the second half.
Back to the racing. Yep.
Yep. So as I mentioned, stage 3, 25 laps. It starts third in the final stage. Then 50 laps, the final one. Stage 1 starts first. Stage 2 winner starts second. Stage 3 winner starts third. Pit stop competition winner starts in fourth. Again, they have to finish 15th or better in the rest of the stages. And there's one more stipulation in the 50 laps.
So I have to ask you this, okay?
Yeah.
So if you don't finish 15th or better,
you don't.
So everyone ahead of you moves up one spot?
I believe so, or they go to the runner up of the stage.
Okay, all right.
I'd imagine they don't. It doesn't necessarily tell you.
Yeah,
but I'd imagine common sense.
That's a question that needs answering.
Yeah. Here's one last stipulation for the final stage. If no natural caution occurs between laps 15 to 20 through 25 in the final stage, NASCAR will call an all-star competition caution. Fun flag, essentially. If we don't get a natural caution within laps 15 through 25, they'll throw one. And within that window.
Don't you just miss the days when Humpty Wheeler was in charge of the All-Star Race and he'd have some guy drive a motorcycle through a burning hoop over some buses, and then they'd have a race that resembled a race?
I just miss when it was just I just miss when it was 3 stages and in field inverts.
Yeah, the field inverts were fun. Or were they? God, that one year they did field inverts based on a fan vote.
Yeah, but they stopped doing it because everybody said invert them all predictably, and then now they had like Russian roulettes and all that stuff, or like unpredictable, like out of a briefcase and all of that. And also, let's not forget, for a period of time, you had elimination formats where if you don't finish at a certain group in a certain order, you're done. When you actually had, I think in 2002, you had 27, 28 cars in the Winston, where they had to do like a survival of the fastest or whatever gimmick they called it back in the early 2000s. But yeah, if it sounded confusing, yes, I read it through on a visual board, because you need to read it through a visual board to kind of get the idea of what all these formats are.
Okay, yeah. So again, the All-Star Race is mind-numbingly difficult to follow with gimmicks. Of course, Texas has always been a place for gimmicks. Even without Eddie Gossett there, we're still.
We'll see.
Yeah. So
we'll see how the festivities are, because Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders and Sammy Hagar is top to top. And the Sammy Hagar, I mean, it's sarcastic because we're talking about 2021 Sammy Hagar, not 1986 Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, well, Sammy Hagar was there last year singing "I Can't Drive 55,"
and everybody trashed it because.
I enjoyed it. I tell you, but of course
I did. I'm just amazed he's in the 70s more than anything. Same with. I know I'm still surprised he's in the 70s, because I could have sworn when he joined Van Halen, he had to be in his early 30s. No, he was pushing 40 by that point.
Yeah, Sammy's been around a long time, man. He was making music in the 60s with Ronnie Montrose. So, but yeah, I mean, the only thing about Sammy Hagar, and this is way off the beaten path of racing, right, is the "I Can't Drive 55" song, right? He says, it used to take 2 hours, now it takes all day. Then he says it took him 16 hours to get to LA. Well,
where was he?
From where, right? So what you could do is you could take Los Angeles, right? And you can figure out how many miles you could drive in 16 hours doing 55 and draw a big circle around there, right? and say any of these points. Well, it could be like from Central Colorado. Might take him 16 hours to drive a 55. But the thing that makes the most sense, right, is all the way in the lower Baja Peninsula. That's where Sammy likes to hang out. That's where he makes his tequila, way down there. And that would be at 55 miles an hour, 16 hours to LA. So if that doesn't solve the mystery for you, because Sammy ain't telling you, go with that, because that's the one that to me makes the most sense. Although, again, well off the beaten path of racing. So let's.
I mean, the music video took at a racetrack that no longer is there anymore. Saugus, where Ken Schrader won the truck race in '95.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So there is a racing element in Sammy Hagar with the video.
Oh, yeah, and there's that beautiful Ferrari he drives in that video as well. So now, do you want to make a pick for the All Star race?
I'm gonna go with Ross Chastain in this one. I want to go with Daniel Suarez, but he has to go through the open or the fan vote first. So I can't really go with Suarez. So I'm going to go with Ross Chastain in this one.
All right. And I'm going to go with, it's got to be somebody aggressive. I'm going to go with Kyle Busch. Just for no other reason than it's Kyle Busch. And you can't count him out anywhere. Yeah. So that being said, we're off to Spain with Formula One.
Yep.
That's this coming weekend, correct?
That is correct. And like we mentioned when we talked about Miami, some people be like, oh, Miami was just, I wonder what's next. Oh, great. It's Barcelona. It's not just people that way, but we'll see how this car does at Catalonia. If it can produce something pretty good, then it produced something pretty good. That's kind of what I'm eyeing for.
I honestly, I'd be interested to see if we see any improvement out of Mercedes.
Yeah,
or is it
that's
just
what I was
be,
thinking.
Yeah, so but in my mind, as I look at this thing, I mean, I think if Ferrari starts at the front, Ferrari finishes at the front. If Max finishes at the front, Max pulls away and nobody sees him the rest of the day until he comes up to lap you. You know, so that's kind of my thoughts on on going to Spain this weekend. So, but I'd be interested to see if Mercedes can get their nose in there and maybe contend for the pole or start from the front row, or maybe they can win a race. Who could tell? So
yeah, but I feel like it's going to be Ferrari or Red Bull, and I feel like it's probably going to favor more or less Max in my book, so I'm going to go with him. But I'd be curious to see how Leclerc does. And hopefully
if you're picking Max, I'm picking Charles. So we'll just leave it there, just the two of us picking today. So
yeah, hopefully it ends better than what happened in Monaco this past weekend for Charles.
Yes. For you folks who didn't get a chance to see it, Charles was doing demonstration laps in Niki Lauda's 1974 Ferrari 312, and it's had a little brake failure and backed it into the wall, busted the rear wing on that very expensive historic car. So I'm sure it's in good hands in the repair shop there. They probably got to refashion some of those parts from scratch, because you can't just go buy a 1974 Ferrari rear wing at the Advance Auto. So but these guys that restore these old Formula One cars are, they're the best in the business. If you recall the movie Rush, all the cars in that movie were actual 70s era Formula One cars that were owned by these collectors, rather than the movie producers building kit cars to resemble them. And a lot of the stunt drivers were the guys that own and restore these cars and race them in vintage demonstrations. So these things are very expensive. They're things of beauty. They capture an era. I'm the type of guy, I love to look at old race cars. You can take me to the Indy Museum and you won't have to fool me the rest of the day. That being said, unfortunately that Charles backed that thing in, but hopefully luck will go his way in Spain and he'll take home a victory and pad his points lead a little more.
Yeah, and it's not the first time this happened for a Lauda Ferrari car. Last year it was John Alesi. This year is Charles Leclerc. And I think there was a video out there at Maranello, I believe, that Leclerc was running a Villeneuve car, a Gilles Villeneuve car. So it's not the first time he's run a historic car in a notable setting. It's just a brake failure that just led to an unfortunate event, which kind of been Charles Leclerc's MO at Monaco. Look further last year when he set the pole lap and then a lap later he wrecked it.
Oh yes, I remember it well. I'm sure Charles does too. So anyway, well, we are just about out of time. So Louise, I want to thank you. Have a good time in Texas next week, and I'll catch up with you after that. I'll be packing my bags and headed to Indianapolis for the balance of this month here. And we will be back on the air with you folks next week. Hopefully Richard will be back from his adventure, and we will talk to you then. I want to thank Dan Blay Racing Art. I want to thank FirstSuperspeedway.com and Mark Dill. I want to thank Spreaker, iHeartRadio, the Hoobazoo Radio Network, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. And certainly I want to thank you folks that listen to us every week. But until next week, good night.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com.
Enter website, enter website, enter website, enter website.